Perfect. As well, Renata, everyone who wants to share a little bit their stories on the chat would be amazing to know a little bit more about who is attending and what you're doing. Especially if you have an SG organization, it would be beautiful if you share with us what you're doing. Great. So now we're going to start. I'm not going to be admitting any more people. I hope, Joy, you can do that for me so I can concentrate on our presentation. Just for everyone to know, now we're going to be recording the presentation because afterwards we're going to be sharing it in our channels. I'm super happy that all of you are here. I'm Paola Pollmeier from the Social Gastronomy Movement, and today I'm happy to announce our second webinar, and this time we're going to talk actually about a pretty heavy situation right now which Lebanon is living. There's a big crisis at the moment, and today we brought together different social gastronomy organizations who are already part of our movement and network, to tell us a little bit what they're doing. So I'm not giving too much context about the crisis because we're gonna have different speakers. We also invited a special expert today, Johana Mendelson, to give us a little bit more information about what is happening and how it happened and so on. So the main focus is going to be how we can foster collaboration to provide emergency food aid during challenging times, right now seeing Lebanon. But we know that there are a lot of other crises in the world. So the idea is to understand how these organizations made it happen to support the community locally. So we're going to have Terro on board from Food Blast. We have Nasser Jaber from the Migrant Kitchen, Anna Hoffmann from Cuisine Sans Frontières, and Johana Mendelson as an expert today here. And me, and also a lot of other SGM members who are going to be supporting us during the session. So just for you to know, we have a maximum 1 hour today. And first of all, I'm going to present a little bit more about what SGM is, our mission and vision, and how we actually got all together here. And then I'm going to be presenting the participants. And then we're going to dive right in to the topic with Joanna. So if you have questions, you can make them while I'm talking, no problem, in the chat. So please, if you have any questions, or also like, again, the invitation to present you can do that in the chat. And I'm gonna start with presenting a little bit what our community does. So we are now a network of more than 100 social gastronomy organizations. So it's organizations who use the power of food to create social change in their city, in their region, in their country, from over 40 countries. The social gastronomy movement already exists since some years, but now we launched some weeks ago the map to actually consolidate our community more and foster more the connection and collaboration between all of us. And that's actually, and I'm going to mentioning it a lot during this webinar, the recipe for change from us, from SGM, is connection. Yeah, the C, connection, collaboration, partnership. So it's we call it CCP, and we're really fostering with everything what we're doing, collective action, and we're trying to support organizations to scale successful and already existing solutions, or even come up with new solutions. So we foster ideation between all of us, and that's why we have the map, which I'm gonna. I actually brought a screenshot from the map. We have the map, and we have also some other collaboration and communication tools we're using to stay in constant contact. And that's how we got to the point when the crisis came up. We were like, okay, we know a lot of organizations who are part of the movement because they got mapped that they're in Lebanon. Like, let's get together, chat together, and raise awareness and raise visibility and support in actually even getting more funding in to support the people in Lebanon right now. And that's how Maya, Nas, and Joanna and Anna, how we got together to actually raise more awareness and to share our stories and the work we're doing right now locally. So I'm super happy that you're all here. It's the second co-created webinar, and it's important for us to like underline co-created because the first webinar was around the farm to table concept, and again the moderator was not necessarily someone from our team. It was Alvaro, who is a permaculture expert, and he gave us all the context and supported us in getting different speakers on and so on. So yeah, that's our recipe, and now I'm going to get into the topic of today, which is the power of collaboration in times of crisis. You know that Lebanon has faced many challenges in the last couple of weeks. Big tragedy. We're gonna listen better to the speakers we invited today, and we want to share today the efforts which were made and the challenges which we are facing at the moment. And that's why I want to give the word to Johana Mendelson Forman. She is a policymaker on conflict and stabilization efforts. And she works hardly on connecting the role of food in conflict, which resulted actually in the creation of conflict cuisine. She's actually also social gastronomy ambassador and works a lot around war and peace, how to actually introduce to war and peace around the dinner table. And she's also an adjunct professor leading topics as diplomacy, conflict resolution, and civic engagement, and how food as a form of smart power can drive these issues in the 24th century. So I'm super happy, Johana, that you are here, and I would give you the word in a second. I'm first going to present the other speakers, and then we start with your introduction. We have here on board Maya Terro, who's the co-founder and executive director of Food Blessed. I'm going to tell more about you before before your speech. We have Nasser Jaber here, the co-founder of Migrant Kitchen, and Anna Hoffmann, the CEO of Cuisine Sans Frontières with base in Zurich. So now, Johana, I would give the word to you. Maybe I'm going to stop sharing so everyone can see you while you're talking. Yeah, so let us know, like, what is the situation at the moment, and tell us a little bit more about you as well.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Nice to see friends. Nice to see my friend Nas here, who actually inspired me when he started his work a few years ago, first with Comida and now with Migrant Kitchen. And nice to see all the people from social gastronomy. But I study failed states and states that are in crisis. So for me, the situation in Lebanon, even before this massive explosion that killed more than 200 and injured 1,000, Lebanon was in a terrible condition. It was imploding without the bombs that blew up these silos and everything else. There was an economic crisis, as we know, and it decimated the buying power of the middle class, and it certainly threw more and more people there into poverty. The government was certainly in a terrible state. It's a very corrupt regime, and it was a cause for, in fact, was accused of negligence in the explosion. They're investigating it, but there's a long record as to why the ingredients that led to the explosion were not removed at the port. And it has a terrible refugee situation because of the war in Syria that's now in its 11th year. There are over 1 million Syrian refugees, a quarter of the population of Lebanon itself that live in Syria, and 250,000 migrant workers in the agricultural sector. So you can imagine what that's like. And then the COVID pandemic, which we're all seeing around the world, actually is killing so many people. The numbers are not accurate for many countries because they don't have testing. But we know that when you live in refugee situations in small, close neighborhoods, it only makes it worse. And it probably right now, with the decimation of hospitals and healthcare because of the focus on taking care of people, it's gotten worse. So the interesting thing from the perspective of what we're doing today is Lebanon has been a food dependent country throughout its history. It imports 80% of its food, which is not a good statistic to have. That's more food than the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere imports, Haiti. So just consider that. And the bulk of the grain that it has in storage, 15,000 tons, was located in the port. And if you look at a before and after picture from Google's Earth of the port, the granaries, the silos where they stored this, were completely destroyed. And this has created a tremendous challenge to the international donor community because this grain has to be replaced. Anybody who lives in the Middle East and the Levant knows the importance of bread at every meal. And that is something that is being worked on, but it's not going to be replaced easily. So in addition, the food security crisis is worsened by the pandemic, and that it's not only the availability of food that we're talking about in Lebanon, but it's also the access to it. Lebanon's population, even its middle class, because of the inflation, was having terrible times buying food. You can imagine what it's like now with an explosion where there's very little ability to purchase food. So the dependency on groups like the ones that are there, like what NAS's doing, what Food Blessed is doing, what all the NGOs are doing, plus the international humanitarian organizations, is tremendous. In this, there's a very important report I'm sure you've probably seen. It's done every year. It's called The State of Food Insecurity, just so we put this in broader world context, is that Sustainable Development Goal number 2, which is ending global hunger by 2030, will not be reached by 2030. 5 years ago, in 2015, when these goals were agreed upon among the United Nations members, there were about 635 million people living below the poverty line. The estimates right now with the COVID epidemic is it might reach almost 1 billion people again, which is a real backsliding on this goal. And so let's just put it in context of Lebanon to close up. And what does it mean for social gastronomy? So many of you are practicing this around the world, but in terms of what's happening in Lebanon, we're seeing groups that have come in there using food first to feed thousands, which is a humanitarian activity, but also groups that are looking down the road into what can be done to help make food a part of the social impact beyond humanitarian support, which has always been the challenge in conflict areas. And Lebanon is a conflict area, don't doubt it. It's in a bad neighborhood. I mean, Israel sits on one side, but Syria sits on the other side. It has borders with those countries. The refugees continue to flow in, and it's a very, very fragile state. So in the immediate 6 weeks since the explosion, what can be done? We know that sustainable mechanisms are being put in place to feed people. That's what many people on this call are doing. But the short term, which means 6 months to 18 months, there's going to be a need for tremendous reconstruction. And the opportunity there is that people can be put to work, people can help clean up and rebuild, and that provides an opportunity for greater security. The long term, however, is going to be a function of governance and how the Lebanese themselves create a model for overcoming their corruption, which is not easy, dealing with the migration problem. And then the other thing that they have is a terrible climate impact. Lebanon sits in the Middle East. It's a very dry region to begin with. The farming communities have been devastated by the heat. And we see that the challenge to food supply in the region is only going to become more dire. So I thank you for all of you on the ground who don't have to be the policymakers, for doing the hard work that you're doing, and for looking at social gastronomy as a tool to help have an impact in the broader social questions, because food is everything. You can't survive without food, and you can't survive without water. And so looking at that in that context, we know that this is a very critical part of the infrastructure. So thank you, Paola. Thank you for your time, and I will stop there.
Thank you, Johana. And I'm super happy if you can stay with us, if you have questions afterwards, and kind of like answering the discussion would be beautiful.
Myself. So
thank you for sharing. And I think that it's very important. Sometimes organizations, they forget how important collaboration is between the public, private, and civic sector. And that's why I'm super happy that we have someone as Johana on board who is working on policy making and so on. And we have civic organizations here and even companies. So now I'm going to get to our next speaker, who is Maya, the co-founder and executive director of Food Blessed. You are actually in Lebanon right now. She, just for everyone, before I give you the word, she was chosen as one of the top 24 world humanitarian women in 2020. And she's a lifelong social, environmental, and political activist, and has proven so through all the actions she's doing in Lebanon. And in 2012, she started She started with food activism, actually, and decided in the same year to co-found Food Blessed. And since then, she has been working very close with the community, has been incentivizing volunteers to support that initiative. And right now, she is mainly focusing with her organization on food assistance to food insecure communities in Lebanon. So before I get more into detail, Maya, I would love you to present yourself. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yeah, welcome and thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. So I think you explained pretty much what I wanted to say. There's something you mentioned about NGOs forget to collaborate with each other. I think in the case of Lebanon, it's not about forgetting, but they on purpose don't want to work together because a lot of NGOs in Lebanon are opportunistic. So if they see money coming and funds coming, they'll just create an NGO just to make use of it. It happened before with the Syrian refugees, and now I'm seeing it even more. And maybe some NGOs do have good intentions, but even good intentions where they're not coordinated and not organized, they don't end up being as efficient. So Food Bless works on food insecurity, hunger, and food waste. And I've seen a lot of food wasted during the first week of the explosion. Like a lot of people started cooking, a lot of NGOs inviting people to cook and donate, but the NGOs themselves or people inviting the people to cook, they didn't even know where the food should go. Because you know, if you're smart and you know how to work in an emergency situation, especially in Lebanon, because the international community does not understand or maybe is not familiar with our culture. In Lebanon, it's very rare for someone who has lost their home to just turn homeless. They usually go to their relatives and stay with them. And even if there's shelters, like the majority will choose to stay with their relatives over staying in a shelter. I'm sorry because my voice is not clear because when I'm tired, just I lose it.
We can hear you well. We can hear you well. No worries.
Okay. Food Bless, the difference that what we do now is something we've been doing since 2012, be it cooking meals or packing and delivering food boxes to those in need. What changed for us is that we just added a new database. We call it the Emergency Relief Database, and it has the contact information of people who are actually in need and not just affected by the explosion, because not every NGO is making the difference that there's a difference between someone who's affected, which is everyone, and then of those affected, some are in need and some are not. Not everyone is in need for a meal or for a food box. So that's why we had to do the homework ourselves. We had to double check. We had names here and there, but not all of them are people who are in need. Some just need someone to fix their houses. They don't need food. Some just need glass for their windows. They don't need food. But it's all mixed up. And when everyone's so focused on food security or insecurity or providing food, few are working on other stuff that I think are essential. But as an NGO who is loyal to its mission, like from the very first day, we've been loyal to our mission, whereas other NGOs maybe have changed their mission according to the situation or where the funds are going. We remain true to who we are. So I just feel sad that everyone's focusing on one thing and there's construction, that there's a huge gap to be filled.
Sorry, Maya. I'm sorry.
If you have any questions, you can just ask. I'll be more than happy to.
Yeah, I think that's one, and it's really interesting because there are a lot of organizations which are joining right now, which are handing over food, and that's one of the questions, like how to identify the right beneficiaries who are really in need of food, right?
Right.
And I would love to have a conversation around it after the presentations. So Maya, thank you for sharing. So the next speaker. After Maya, I'm going to share my screen again. One second. Is going to be Nasser Jaber. I actually don't know if I'm pronouncing your name Jaber correctly, but Nas is from the Migrant Kitchen, and he started with two friends this a catering office, lunches and private events around New York City, and it quickly evolved into something bigger, and the Migrant Kitchen evolved, and in this year in March they started with 100 meals to hospitals, and then very quickly grew to 6,000 meals a day. So they were delivering meals to hospitals, to homeless shelters, and so on. And now they're even active in Lebanon. And I know, Nas, that you're also working with many other organizations around the world, also very close to Johana. And I think you're the best person to tell us a little bit more in detail what you're doing right now, why are you in Lebanon at the moment, and on what you're focusing at the moment. So Nas, please let us know what you're doing and who you are. Nasser.
Thank you all for being on the call, and good to see old friends and new friends. I'm going to make this very short because I'm actually going to introduce my co-founder, and she's going to lead the conversation here. As you know, the Migrant Kitchen has fed over 1 million people in New York and has done Jerusalem, and I always wanted to do Beirut. So I reached out to an organization on the ground here before the explosion happened. It's called Mentisana, and it was operated and run by a friend of mine named Dalia Tabaray, who I actually briefly met prior. She's at Google, and currently she has led the building of the Google Maps for shelters, which after the explosion, people were able to pin if they have rooms or homes that they can give to people who lost their homes. We were able to collaborate and create our answer to World Central Kitchen, which we call it the People's Central Kitchen. Maybe the name needs a little bit of change, but nonetheless, we did it. And we have served thousands of meals so far in Beirut. Now, Dalia will speak on how she built the process, because all we did on our end was provide the support financially. But Dalia built the ground up of the kitchen, the logistics. So Dalia, are you on the line?
Yeah, thank you, Nasser. I think this is a great segue, which I was hoping we would get to as part of the. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
I
actually muted you by accident. Sorry. Yeah, Dalia.
Thank you for having me. I think Maya and I had connected via text before, but great to meet all the new faces. Thank you, Nasser. I think this is a great segue. Also, Paola, you presented a very important question, which I really think I was hoping to get to as part of this discussion on solutions and what's the best way to lead the needy. And I think in the PCK, from my background, Mentisana.org is a New York-based organization where we've done communal kitchens across refugee camps in Greece and Zaatari camp, working with grassroots organizations. And what we, given my background at Google, which is my full-time job, I saw that there's opportunity to leverage technology more powerfully to inform operations and create wider impact in crisis response, particularly. And so to me, that intersection of humanitarian aid and technology became of an interest to me at a much younger age than what I am now, and has stayed with me. And I think to speak to Maya's point of NGOs collaborating together to drive impact on the ground, I think is a crucial point. And that's how the Migrant Kitchen and Mentisana.org came together to give birth to the PCK. We really focus on the power of technology and data, specifically within technology, to curate lists of the neediest receivers. And what we've done within the PCK in Greece, but also in the refugee camps, but also are trying to bring to Lebanon, is use tools that are publicly available, such as Google search heat map data, and people searching for food, or in Arabic or in English, you know, or shelters, for example, near me, and to also use our data and technology to drive our cost of operations low. And these are the two factors that have been our guiding principles to the founding of the People's Central Kitchen. Whether in curating lists, and our mission is using food security also as a mechanism for addressing people's most dire issues and the root causes of some of the root causes that lead to food insecurity in Lebanon. If we take it down, one of the biggest problems in Lebanon is sectarianism. And we like to use our platform in the PCK when it comes, and also this rift that continues to widen between refugees and the local communities. And what we've done through Mentisana.org, the Migrant Kitchen, and the People's Central Kitchen is come together to create a platform and an initiative that curates lists of needy people from across the sects, but also from across the different factions, such as domestic workers and refugees in Lebanon, and promise that we will justly distribute foods across these different factions. That is the promise and the mission of the People's Central Kitchen. And our biggest tool has been technology to help us curate these lists and data, and to help us at the same time drive our a very low cost model right now, and our costs keep going down month on month. So it's very important to keep scale, and that's why we've kept a very in mind, and that's why we've kept a very open partnership model to help us scale up. Well, whether through our Migrant Kitchen collaboration, I reached out to Maya separately as well to speak about a collaboration with Food Blast. We're bringing Google's Help-Lebanon initiative, you know, which Sundar has made public, the CEO, to help us as well. And I think partnership is key. Partnership is key. And I'd like to say one thing. I think Maya mentioned, and I saw it on the ground in Greece, which I share her frustration, this repetition and duplication of effort that happens. I think it's very frustrating. But I also think there's a realistic element to it. In emergency response, we cannot expect perfection. But I do think the intention and for things to be so clearly divided up in terms of who does what. But I think as we move out of the emergency response crisis in Lebanon, getting organized and collaborate better, and thank you for presenting that platform for that, Paola, is critical. And I'd love to chat with all of you about how we can do that better.
Dalia, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your intervention. I think it's exactly that what the social gastronomy movement wants to do, right? Like to foster connection and collaboration. And very often what Maya was saying, or what you were saying, is like not reinvent the wheel from zero. So there might be a donor, there might be a company who wants to support, but why not like use the structure which is already there, and rather see how together we can increase collective impact, right? And that's why we're all here, and that's why I'm also super happy that other organizations, and I just saw Harold also coming in, other organizations which are working all over the world, which maybe are even supporting right now in Lebanon, how afterwards you can get together and see, okay, like how can we foster this? So absolutely aligned, Dalia. Congratulations for that beautiful work you're doing with Nas and with Johana and with Maya. So I remember when I created the chat between Nasser and Maya, like both of them got together, and maybe afterwards you can tell us a little bit if you're going to be actually working together with Food Blast and Migrant Kitchen, and what other collaborations are you right now doing locally. That would be really interesting to understand. And now I'm gonna go to Anna Hoffmann, to our next speaker. And it also, I mean, I showed you in the beginning the map, and we had a lot of onboarding sessions with different organizations from all over the world. And through the map, we actually realized who is right now active in Lebanon. And with Anna Hoffman, you were not yet on the onboarding session, but we were in contact. And Nikki told me at a certain moment, hey, talk with Cuisine Sans Frontières. They're also active in Lebanon. So we're super happy that you're here. Anna Hoffman is the CEO of Cuisine Sans Frontières in Zurich, co-founder. And it's Kitchens Without Borders, and what they do is that they use the table to resolve conflicts and to foster community spirit. So Cuisine Sans Frontières builds gastronomic meeting places and training facilities in areas of social conflict, always in cooperation with a local partnering organization. And I think that again underlines how important it is not just to get in somewhere and say, okay, I'm gonna solve this problem right now, but the importance on get together, cooperating to solve a problem and a conflict. So I will just leave the word to you, Anna. Cuisine Sans Frontières is active, just before I give you the word, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Ecuador, in Georgia, in Kenya, and in Lebanon. And that's why we invited you, Anna. So I give you the word now. Please let us know who you are and what you're doing in Lebanon at the moment.
Thank you, Paola, for this introduction. I think you described very well and in a few words what we are doing as an organization. I would just like to pick the point that you just mentioned about the collaboration and the cooperation, because it is really one core element of how we work, is that all our projects we are a Swiss-based organization, but we have projects all over the world. And we are always collaborating with the local partner, because we have an expertise here. We have lots of cooks and gastronomic people or people with a gastronomic background among our network, among our volunteers, among our board. But we have a certain expertise here, but then you always need the local expertise as to avoid the double impact, or just to really know what you're doing on site. So also in Lebanon, we were looking from the beginning for a local partner organization, because we started to be active in Lebanon in 2017, 2018. I think Johana described very well the critical situation the country is in. And we started to work in the refugee camp Burj el Barajne, which is on the south of Lebanon, on Beirut, excuse me. And they as well were affected by the explosion. Fortunately, our partners and all the people, they were shocked, and they are still, but they are all well, and there is some infrastructure damage, but no human damage, let's say. And we were before, and last year already, trying to create a training program and a cafeteria with women in this refugee camp. There is this, I'm sure you've all heard of the Sufra catering. There was this famous documentary about the women who have the food, the refugee women who have the food truck that provides food and catering to the Swiss embassy, for example, and I think the American embassy as well. This all is a pre-pandemic situation, but we created a business plan with the idea to open a cafeteria that inside the camp, which then would be the first place where women can go and come together in a public place, because there is just no place where they can meet unless in their homes. But as you might imagine, the situation in the camp is it's really dense. There is not a lot of space, and there is always the rest of the family. So there is no place where women can just meet, maybe with their children. But we wanted to provide such a place, and we're still working on it. Although the economic and the pandemic and now the explosion, all this slows down our efforts in trying to find a good location. But we had this partner organization that we had collaborated with for more than 2 years, and there is a lot of trust and knowledge, and this is what made it possible that we just, when we heard about the collaboration and we knew they're all well, we decided to support them, because they told us as a community is somehow still isolated. I don't know if you know the situation in this camp, but it's mainly Palestinian and Syrian refugees living there, some IDPs as well from southern areas in the Lebanon. But they are for vulnerable community anyways, and of course as refugees, as in other countries, not always very welcome. But they said, okay, we have, some of us have been born here, we have our children here, we are part of this community, and although our relationship sometimes is difficult, we want to support, we want to show we are here, so we are going to do this what we are best at, and this is cooking. And they started to cook, and with the idea as well to distribute the food among, of course, also families in the camp who they know very well and who they know they are really in need. But also outside to the people who are all the volunteers who are working, or people who were obviously in need. And as the demand grew bigger and bigger, they collaborated again as well with the Lebanese Food Bank to do the distribution, to assure what Maya also underlined, that really the people who need it receive the food they distribute. And we as an organization, as we are in Switzerland, we could not do much more than to provide money. And our board immediately decided to fix a certain amount, which was something around $5,000, that we said we will send you for sure. And we were convinced that in our members, we are an association, we will find more money, and we just sent out a newsletter, and we had like more than $20,000 within a few days. So this allows us to just support the community further and further, and to distribute around 300 meals per day. And yes, we will continue doing this. We are still in contact with other donors who will maybe additionally provide food. So this could only be implemented in like this short amount of time, because we had already this very profound relationship, and we collaborated with this organization for quite some time. And I think this shows again how important it is to have like partners and collaboration and the network. So thank you also for what you are providing to us as a network.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much, Anna. I talked with Nas before this webinar, and he described like how difficult the situation right now is locally, right? It's different sometimes when we provide support from outside, and I would love to like hear, and also from you, Anna, but I know that you are not right now locally what has been like the most difficult situation at the moment? Like where do you most need help with? I mean, of course, more funds, and here there's also a call. I know that Food Blessed created a crowdfunding campaign, and I'm going to invite everyone from you, Dalia, Anna, to share the details so people can actually join it afterwards, and we can also move it in social media so people can donate. But for now, and maybe Nas or Maya or Dalia, can you let us know, let's start with Maya, what is right now like the most difficult, what has been the biggest difficulty for you, for Food Blessed at the moment?
I think the biggest difficulty was, if I was to talk just about the explosion, it would be about identifying those who actually need the help and where they need it the most. And that aside, because we've been working on distributing meals and food boxes, we launched this campaign called Beat Hunger LB back in October 2019, and we've been packing on a weekly basis between 200 and 300 food boxes on a weekly basis. Now it's up to 1,000 per month, so around 400, maybe 500 a week. We've been cooking between 400 and 900 meals a day. But I would say funding, and it's not new and everyone knows that, we need money to buy the ingredients, and I don't mind if we get them in kind, but there's also limited access to who can take stuff from the port, or you have to pay a huge amount of taxes, because even as an NGO you have to pay taxes, you're not exempted. I think the biggest challenge, other biggest challenge, is to be able to help those who actually need the help. We actually have now 11,000 names registered for a food box, and these are not necessarily people who have been affected by the explosion, because I think a lot of people forget that even before the explosion, Lebanon was going through a lot. We had an economic crisis, we had COVID, and then people couldn't take out their money from the banks. You can get paid in dollars, people lost their jobs. All these situations have somehow eliminated the middle class. Like, I think the middle class is gone. So now in Lebanon, you're either rich or you're poor. And if you are poor, you're like destitute. You're very poor now. So yeah, everybody needs help, but some more than others. And now because of the explosion, there has been a huge, it's just beyond logic, increase in the amount of help that's going to only people affected by the explosion, when in reality there's so many people in need that have not been affected by the explosion. But I don't know why no one's focusing on those. Those are also in need, even though they haven't been affected by explosion. We help everyone, and we are still like our operations are still ongoing in terms of delivering food boxes to people who have registered with us, which we started with 17,000 names, and since October till now we've been able to deliver around 7,500. And some people don't know, but Foodless is community-based and it's volunteer-driven. So everyone in Foodless is a volunteer. And we don't have like, it's a non-religious, it's a non-political, it's a non-sectarian, non-partisan NGO, which means we help everyone. And contrary to most NGOs in Lebanon who either only help Lebanese or only help non-Lebanese, we help everyone. We don't make that difference. And then the funds we get are like individual donors. So
It's mute. Maya? I think you
okay.
you were mute for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I didn't mute it though. Sorry. So yeah.
No, thank you, Maya. Thank you. And I think it shows also that actually everyone who is in this call right now, how important volunteering is. And that even if I'm not in the place, I can volunteer in sharing with my network to get people to donate or connect, right? Connect. So
Exactly.
it's really impressive, Maya, that Food Bless is completely volunteer.
Yeah, no one believes, like we've so far delivered around 1 million meal and almost 10,500 food boxes with the help of, I would say, 3,500 individuals between volunteers and companies and partners. But the whole point is that when Foodless was born, everyone just made fun of us and said, you won't make it because what is this business model? Like only volunteers, it doesn't work, especially in Lebanon where NGOs are fund reliant. Yani, if they don't have funds, their projects don't work. We were like, you don't need to rely on money. You can rely on volunteers, on in-kind donations. And the whole point, because we also focus on food waste, we do believe that sometimes you don't have to create new resources. You have to make use of what's already there. And to us, people are not numbers. We don't care about reports. This is not how we measure our impact. We believe that we use food as a medium to bring people together, especially people who would have never met was it not for Foodless. And it happens every time, all the time. People who meet through Foodless who had never met, like-minded people work together. And, food is love and it brings people together. And to those we are helping, we're not trying to just we know they might stay hungry, but at least I'll feel that someone somewhere is thinking about them and is telling them that they matter and they're enough. Because in Lebanon, if you're poor, you feel ashamed that sometimes even if you're in need, you would not say you are in need. Because appearances are everything in this country, which is really bad. At Foodless, we say we accept you and love you as you are, regardless. And we are here to serve you because nobody knows where they're going to wind up. And maybe one day I might end up needing help and someone will be there for me. And that's just how it is. People need to be together and be there for each other because that's the real humanitarian definition. It's not UN, it's not big NGOs, it's not big funds and projects and monitoring and evaluation. Sometimes it starts with little acts. These are what makes the huge impact. When everyone does their bit in this world, we won't need big NGOs because everyone's there for everyone else. And this is what we talk about: social responsibility, community service, civic engagement. You don't have to have money to make an impact. Sometimes it's little acts. And we've been talking about that since 2012. And I think now more than ever, the Lebanese community are realizing the importance of getting together and getting things done without having to rely on governments or NGOs or whatever. Everyone's just getting their shovels, cleaning, cooking, whatever. So, yeah.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Maya. Very deep words. And
yeah, guys, just 2 seconds, right? I don't know if I just right. Check this out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to ask you, Otsunas, that you give us a little bit more insights because you just arrived in a way, right? Some days ago. What has been like your experience so far? And
I'm not sure if small acts of kindness can bring this back together, but I'm gonna let Dalia speak to that because the truth of the matter is that like the past 2 days I've seen some shit that really fucking pissed me off. But I think Dalia would speak more about the actual problems that are real on the ground that will allow this to, you know, it needs more collective action. Yes, it needs people like us coming together, but it definitely needs executable action on scale because this is not normal.
Yeah, am I?
Yeah, of course, you can compliment, and then
I think we all have our hearts and our intentions and our actions in the right place. But to Nasser's point, 23.4% of the total population in Lebanon has been suffering from food shortages prior to the explosion. This is World Bank authenticated data. We see it in Google data. And just to give a little bit of context, the food prices have went up just from September last year to May. This is even before the explosion, to May, by 109%. So the scale that Nasser is talking about is crucial to covering this crisis and has to be through a collaboration between the larger NGOs and the grassroots organizations on the ground. I think, and there is enough room for impact for everyone to play their role. The PCK, I think it's very important to get to the stories on the ground. And that's why Paola is keen on bringing that point. Through the PCK and through our social media, we've been writing it's inspired by the Humans of New York, the stories of resilience in Lebanon that are related to food hunger. And every time we do a delivery, because we cook and we deliver laced with dignity, and dignity and compassion are important in Lebanon, because people do shy away from asking for help and from going to distribution points and getting food. And I think but they're also willing to share anonymously their stories of struggle and that will touch every human heart. And so we have been so touched by these stories that we wanted to bring them to life. And I think that's, Paola, you can help us spread these stories as well, because they're stories of struggle, but also stories of impact, of how through a meal a day, through a donation, you know, the meals for the PCK are right now costing as low as below $2 a meal in terms of ingredients, despite this inflation. And there's been currency arbitrage that we're trying to do, and there's been cost efficiency that we're trying to implement through a mix of donations in kind, but also reaching out to the right suppliers. so that this like less than $2 a meal is touching these lives, and the stories are coming out of how it's helping them deal in this massive situation. Now we need scale. Scale can come through the large organizations helping out these grassroots organizations. Funding remains to be a big problem. Funneling that money to the right organizations remains a big problem. And I'll share our GoFundMe campaign. But we've been just with 5,000 meals, we're trying to step away from just the numbers of impact to bring out these stories. Who are we touching? What are their struggles? That's the struggle in Lebanon. That's the real struggle in Lebanon. And as the PCK, we always try to mirror the struggles on the ground. We as a team are cross-sectarian. We are, the majority are women, because women empowerment needs a lot of, also is a mission in and of itself. The entire operations team on the ground is actually women, outside of the running NGOs. And I think the coming together, and there's refugees, there's Palestinians, you all know Nasser is Palestinian. There's also migrant workers that have reached out to us wanting to help. And so the bringing together those factions and having them mirrored in the NGO and translating on the ground in the curation of whom are we going to help, and that message of solidarity is crucial. And I'll share with you all, I'm happy to send you all some of the stories of who we're helping. I sob every time I hear them. And we cannot forget how far $1 to $2 a day goes, and on the ground. Like to me, that has been, it has been my pain, but also the way we channel our pain as an organization, coming together and making that $1 to $2 go a long way through cost cutting, but also through making sure that we reach those people with dignity, with compassion, that need us the most. We don't subject them to our foreign way of doing things. We know on the ground the cultural sensitivities. What does solidarity mean? It needs to be reflected in the teams servicing them. And I think those have been the most eye-opening, unique challenges in Lebanon beyond funding that we structured our organizations around.
Okay. Thank you,
Can I just add something?
Yes, please. Maya, yes. And then I would love, after Maya, I would love to listen to Johana, because right now we're talking about a civic organization, grassroots Maya in a way, and then migrant, like, NGOs and so on. I would like to understand a little bit more about that importance of collaboration. Maya, but now it's you have the word now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say briefly that the 24.5, that percentage is pretty old. Like, and now I think it was around 45, and by 2020, October 2020, not end of 2020, it's estimated that number of people living under poverty line percentage would be 60%. And for those who sometimes 109% for some people is vague. Food prices have tripled. So what you used to buy now for 1 thou, you need 3 thou for it, for example. But
Prices have
the
tripled.
thing is that the
Can you repeat?
Food prices have tripled. So for those, like the 109 percentage for me is sometimes vague. So what I usually tell people is that food prices have tripled, whereas wages have been cut in half, and some people are not even getting paid. So imagine yourself with the same salary and everything else is increasing in price. Definitely you'll be having to deal with difficult choices, like a lot of people are not, have removed chicken and meat, for example, from their diets because they are so expensive. Like I think 1 kilo used to be $13 and now it's $30, which is a huge amount of money for just meat. And as much as we love to deliver meals, I think it's also more empowering to provide the people in need with their own ingredients to cook their own food. So we do focus on food boxes more than meals, because if people have access to their kitchens, we think we just leave the liberty for them to cook at their own what do you call it, like preference, because some people will like eat the same dish over 2 days period, for example, or have a lesser portion, or maybe prefer some food over the others. So our box is very basic, but a lot of people find it very essential, because we just include the essential things that a family of 4 need to provide food sustenance for 3 to 4 weeks, and it's only $19. So for $19 a box, you can help feed a family for 3 to 4 weeks, a family of 4 individuals. Some people go to restaurants and just throw $19 and drinks and what, a burger. We can feed a family with that. So it's really easy sometimes, just if you think about it in that way, to help. And it's another thing, because for us, the dollar is now something that's like, when you see a dollar, some people just like go like, oh my God, dollar. It's just funny, because not long time ago, for those who don't know, in Lebanon, the dollar and the Lebanese pound, like everyone uses them interchangeably. Like we don't ever make the difference. Like we go to supermarket, we pay dollars or Lebanese. Now it's like people don't even have dollars, and if they have, they save them. It's like gold. So it's just funny how tables have turned, how what a difficult and strange situation we are in. Although everyone saw this day coming, but some things were just, you can't see them coming, like the explosion, for example. Like no one saw that coming.
No one saw that coming. Absolutely agree.
Failed governments.
Thank you. Yeah, left off.
I
Yeah, one dollar can support a lot of that. Yeah, okay. Like last phrase.
I think this one small build on what Maya said. I think there's the need, the 24% that was before the explosion and before at the end of the year, you know, yes, it is 50%, and it's going to get worse than that. These are conservative estimates going below the poverty line. I think what we need to keep in mind is that the 17,000, for example, signed up lists, just to change them into numbers, you're talking about over 2 million people that are in need. And so whether it's the need for collaboration is huge, because the 17,000 on Food Blast, or you know, the 15,000 on our list are not going to cut it when the numbers are, we need to scale up, and there's enough impact to go around for these organizations to create an, you know, for us to meet that need. We need to, there's enough. There's the need is massive, and the supply today is not as big. And also the different models, there's room for the different models. I agree with Maya, her food boxes cater to a certain type of need, because they're ingredients and people are left to cook on their own devices. But there are people that don't have gas to cook, don't have electricity. And that's where PCK is focusing. It's a different type of food insecurity that is a tranche that is more dire, where cooking has become a privilege. Making your own food has become a privilege. And we cannot forget about those. And for us, our focus, because I think it's important that we cater to the different tranches of demand on the ground, is as PCK to go with nutritious meals delivered to those who have, for whom cooking has become a privilege in this dire situation.
Thank you, Dalia. Yeah, I agree on that. I just wanted to give a word also to Johana, and then a last word to Anna, because we have only 2 minutes left. I also wanted to make some other questions, but actually it was much nicer just to listen to you and to understand the problem better and understand what you're doing at the moment, and with how little all of us can support. So thank you. And Johana, maybe you want to complement something, especially regarding that collaboration side.
Yeah, thank you, Dalia, for that update, and also thank you, Maya, because it's hard when you're not on the ground to know what's happening. But I have a few questions, and I think it would be worth doing a follow-up, Paola, with the UN agencies and the other international agencies that are there. because recovery is not going to happen without international multilateral support and also with the private sector in Lebanon. And frankly, there's been very little. The UN agencies, of course, report by requirement to know how they are collaborating with you. The need is greater than all of you combined, but I'd love to hear another session where we bring in and hold accountable those people in the private sector that are really trying to rebuild. Because at the end of the day, it's Lebanese who are going to have to rebuild their own country. It's not going to be any of us. So I think that would be very important. And I'm going to have to cut out, but thank you. This has all been
All of
so
us.
interesting. And we will be back. I recommend another session in about a month to see where
Thank
things
you.
are.
Thank you, Johana. It would be beautiful to get together again together. Anna, Dalia. Anna, maybe you want to have the last word. And again, everyone can follow us on Social Gastronomy Movement. We shared actually the links with everyone, and actually I would love with Johana and with Maria, Dalia, and Anna and Nasser to set up maybe another session where we even could get some other institutions on board. And again, you can write us afterwards if you have ideas on how the movement can keep supporting. On the one hand, what we were trying to do right now with Dalia, Maya, and everyone is to really visualize, share the crowdfunding campaigns. You heard Maya, $1 can already support a lot. So let's not think that it's insignificant. And now maybe Anna, do you want to complement something?
I would just to continue repeating that really I believe collaboration is key, and that we should collaborate, all of us, grassroots and institutional organizations and state organizations. I think in the end it's if we all try to give our best and to help, we will be able to resolve this crisis situation, but also other crisis situations, I think.
Agreed. Yeah, I think a word is resilience. How can we become more resilient through collaboration, co-creation, and creating like more stronger partnerships. So thank you so much for everyone that you joined, and we're gonna catch up soon again. We're gonna stay in touch, and for all organizations who want to be part, you can go to the website and explore the map and see if you're eligible to be mapped in our movement. So thank you so much to everyone. Ciao. Bye-bye.